Think about your earliest memory. Maybe you remember your first day of school. Maybe you remember a toy you had. Maybe you remember falling off a chair and pretending you weren't crying. But now try to remember something from when you were 1 year old. Nothing? 2 years old? Still nothing? You spent the first few years of your life existing, learning, crying, laughing, and probably causing your parents to lose sleep. And somehow your brain deleted almost all of it. You don't even remember being a baby, which raises a pretty weird question. If those years actually happened, why can't you remember them? And no, your baby brain didn't run out of storage. The real reason is much stranger. When you're born, your brain is already packed with an enormous number of neurons, but it's not finished. Your brain is basically still under construction. It's learning how to see, how to recognize voices, how to control your hands, how to understand language, and most importantly, how to remember things. Think about how ridiculous your first year of life must have been. You can't walk, you can barely control your own limbs, you don't understand language, and you're completely dependent on a bunch of giant humans who keep picking you up for no reason. If an adult behaved like a baby for one day, we'd probably recommend therapy. But babies are actually learning incredibly fast. Their brains are making new connections constantly. And that's one reason your earliest memories are so difficult to keep. Your brain isn't just storing memories, it's constantly changing itself. It's building the system that will eventually allow you to store more organized, long-lasting memories. One important part of this is the hippocampus. It's a brain structure heavily involved in forming and retrieving memories. And when you're very young, the hippocampus and other memory systems are still developing. So you can experience something, learn from it, and even remember it for a while, without that memory becoming a permanent part of the story you can recall years later. It's kind of like having a phone with an amazing camera, but the cloud backup hasn't been activated yet. You can take thousands of pictures. Then your phone gets reset. Congratulations. Your entire childhood is now a deleted folder. But here's where things get even more interesting. Babies actually do remember things. This is important. It's not like you were born with a brain that said, memory? Sorry, that feature is coming in version 3.0. Babies can learn. They recognize familiar faces. They can learn patterns. They can remember certain behaviors. They can even show signs that they recognize people and environments. So the problem isn't that babies have no memory. The problem is that the memories they form don't usually survive in the same way adult autobiographical memories do. And there's another huge problem: language. When you're 1 year old, you probably don't have a sophisticated vocabulary. You aren't sitting in your crib thinking, today I experienced an emotionally complicated interaction with my mother. You're probably thinking something closer to, ah. And that's important because memories aren't just pictures. As we grow older, we organize experiences using words, concepts, places, people, and stories. You don't just remember what happened. You remember what happened to you. You know where you were, who was there, what happened before it, what happened afterward, and how you felt about it. A baby doesn't have that same narrative system yet. So even if your brain stored pieces of an experience, you may not have the mental framework needed to turn it into the kind of personal memory you can consciously recall decades later. It's like trying to save a movie when you haven't invented the file format yet. But there's another reason your childhood memories disappear. Your brain is constantly remodeling itself. As you grow, you create new neural connections. And you also remove connections that aren't being used. This process is called synaptic pruning. Basically, your brain is cleaning house. And your brain doesn't care that you really liked that random toy when you were 2. If a connection isn't useful anymore, out it goes. Your brain is basically the world's most ruthless minimalist. Do you need this memory? No. Delete. What about this one? Never used it. Delete. That one was my favorite stuffed animal. Delete. But this doesn't mean your early experiences were useless. Far from it. Even though you can't consciously remember most of your infancy, those experiences can still influence you. Your brain was learning what voices sounded familiar, what faces were safe, how people interacted with you, how language worked, how the world responded when you cried. You don't remember learning most of these things, but they helped build the person who eventually became you. And that's one of the strangest things about human memory. You can forget the event while keeping some of its effects. Think about learning how to ride a bicycle. You probably don't remember every moment of learning, but your brain kept the important part. You know how to ride? Your earliest childhood was full of experiences like that. Your brain wasn't trying to create a perfect documentary of your life. It was trying to build a functioning human. And honestly, it had bigger problems to deal with. You had to learn how to walk, talk, recognize people, control your body, understand objects, navigate a world that was basically a giant unexplained simulation. Remembering your second birthday wasn't exactly priority number 1. But here's the really creepy part. Some people claim they remember being a baby. They might describe a room, a crib, a certain voice, or even something that happened when they were extremely young. So, are those memories real? Sometimes they might contain fragments of genuine early memories. But there's a catch. Human memory is incredibly reconstructive. Your brain doesn't store memories like video files sitting inside a hard drive. Every time you remember something, you're essentially rebuilding it. And that means memories can change. Your parents can tell you stories about your childhood. You can see old photographs. You can hear relatives describe something that happened. Eventually, your brain might create a memory that feels completely real, even though a part of it came from information you learned later. Which means you could have a crystal clear memory of something that you never actually experienced the way you remember it. Your brain is basically an unreliable narrator with admin privileges. So why can't you remember being a baby? Because your memory systems were still developing. Your brain hadn't fully developed the machinery for long-lasting autobiographical memories. You didn't have the language and mental framework to organize experiences the way you do now. And as your brain developed, it reorganized and replaced many of those early neural connections. But those forgotten years weren't wasted. They were probably the most important years of your life. You just don't remember them. You learned how to recognize people, how to communicate, how to move, how to understand the world, and eventually, how to become the person sitting here watching this video. So there's something strangely beautiful about that. The person you are today was built by a version of you that you'll never remember. You can't remember your first steps, your first words, your first laugh. You can't remember the first time you saw your parents. But somewhere in your brain, the effects of those experiences are still part of you. Your earliest memories may be gone, but the person they helped create is still here. And honestly, that's probably the weirdest thing about growing up. You spent the first few years of your life becoming you, and then forgot the entire tutorial.